Now, our panelists joined me earlier this year at the Master Specifiers Retreat. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, it's a fairly new program for CSI. We hold it once a year. It's a very small, very intimate event. We have fewer than 100 people, I believe. And we usually go somewhere warm, I'll be honest. We were at Amelia Island in Florida in January, where it was not quite as warm as we expected it to be, was it, ladies?
No.
But we still had a wonderful time. And the way this event works, well, the purpose of this event really goes to the heart of CSI's mission. Our goal is to improve communication throughout the construction industry, particularly among the different parties involved in construction. And what we do at the Master Specifiers Retreat is we bring high-level specifiers who are handling big projects together with high-level representatives of the manufacturing community so that they can have a serious conversation about what's going on. And I'll let the ladies tell you a little bit more about their conversations in a bit. But what we look for here is a lot of relationship building around the future of construction. And what we look for here is a small, intimate event. We don't have any exhibitor booths. We don't do any of that kind of thing. We're looking for people to build relationships, which is what CSI wants throughout the industry. Now, if you want to know more about the event, it's at csinet.org/MSR. But I really think you ought to listen to the ladies. They have some interesting comments after their experience this year. Before I go on, ladies, is there anything else you want to point out? Go ahead.
I think you've got it right. That it's about building relationships. It's about talking to people in a relaxed kind of situation and place so that if something happens where you are in a more tense situation, you have the relaxed one to fall back on and remember and be able to relate to each other and solve a problem instead of accusing each other.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Kathryn, you've joined us.
I'm here. Actually, I've been here all the time. I've just been, for some reason, it put me in as an attendee and not as a special person. But I want to comment, one of the reasons that I always go to the Master Specifiers Retreat is because it gives me a chance to sit down and talk one-on-one to people and to talk about things that are not necessarily on the sales brochure, but where are you going, what's going on, here's a special problem I have, how can you help me, or I don't understand this, could you explain it to me? And that's very useful.
Yeah, it's a very different event. It's got a very different vibe. It's not like anything else CSI does. And I'm very pleased with it. And I can say that because I have nothing to do with how it's organized and run, so I can just be impressed with it. Kathryn, we missed your introduction, so why don't you explain who you are?
Who am I? That's a good question. I'd like to know myself. No, I am Senior Specifier for Walt Disney Imagineering in Glendale, California. I'm also President of the Los Angeles chapter of CSI and very involved in certification and a number of other things, and just have been privileged enough to go to the first 3 Master Specifiers retreat, and so I can sort of talk about how it's evolved and how it continues to evolve, and it's just been a delight each time.
It's a lot of fun, yeah. Now, I believe this is the photo that most irked all of the folks on the phone when I put this into the slides, and I believe Lynn is taking the photo. That's how Lynn escaped
this. She got herself out of it.
Yes, she's skilled.
Yes.
But guys, individually, why did you go? Kathryn, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I am always looking for people who know more stuff than I do or know things about stuff that I don't know, because I know a little bit about a lot of things, but I'm always looking to increase my list of resources, increase the people that I can call and say, hey, you were talking about this, that, or the other thing. Can you, do you have a contact? Do you have a... It's just building your network, and it's a great event to do that at.
Exactly, Andrea. I agree. That's why I go as well. I'm involved with CSI on a local level, and I'm going to have a lot of manufacturers, reps, and trusted advisors that I use locally, but it's good to go and develop relationships with these firms, national level people and their technical people, and to ask questions, because my particular firm does projects all over. And so while my relationships with local reps are great, it's good to develop relationships with their national people as well.
This is Lynn. Andrea, I couldn't agree more with that. We work all over the country and starting to work in other places in the world as well. So it is very important to have those larger than your regional relationships established. It's also important to meet people face to face and actually talk to a human being. I can probably get a lot of the information that I need by going online and finding a website for a particular manufacturer, but that's only possibly going to give me the information that I need. It's not going to give me the other part of things, and as Kathryn said, the things that are not typical. And we do a lot of atypical things. So this is a very important event for me.
And one of the reasons that we all protested this picture is it was taken about 11:30 at night in the bar, which is another thing. We all get to know each other as people, and we get to step out of the tightly regulated roles that we all inhabit. So I get to know Tracey as the delightful person that she is, and I get to know Andrea, and I get to know Joy, and we hear, we get to hear the dirt about each other, but then we get to make connections as people, and when you start to be friends with people, it just takes it to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that, it's those friendships and those relationships that help me do my job better, because, Kathryn and I, we email each other all the time about, hey, do you know a good company for this, or have you ever used this before, and how does that work for you? And so those relationships are priceless, as well as from the product standpoint, the relationships that I've made with the people that I have met at MSR help me do my job better from the second I get back. They're the people I call because, hey, you know what, we just talked about that when we met with each other, and now I have this situation where I need it, so can you help me with that?
Yeah, what do you think, Tracey?
Yeah, I was going to say, I work for Aquably, and we're a corporate sponsor, so we could have kind of sent any one of a few hundred people to this type of event. So I was really excited to be able to go, and, we chose to pick people who were leaders already in CSI, because I think by being involved in CSI, taking on a leadership role at either the chapter or region level, or maybe even in the institute level, you're able to build those relationships just by actively volunteering with the people around you. So I can't, kind of stress how important that is enough. But I've gone to a lot of the institute events, the academies, the Leader Summit, Construct, and a variety of region events. And this was the first event I really showed up at, my first time at the retreat. And the first time I showed up, I went, wait a minute, this venue is like, I felt I was at like Donald Trump's house. It was absolutely fun. I'm like, is this really where the CSI event is taking place? It was absolutely phenomenal. I was blown away. I said, I didn't even bring nice enough clothes for this venue, But it was absolutely phenomenal. I think that really enhanced those relationships and the interaction, just because we were all in such a really, pretty pristine environment the whole week we were there. We felt like, I think everybody there felt like a rock star.
And that's kind of
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathryn.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes a big difference, because we all, when you feel valued, it's easier to turn around and value other people, and I think we all walked away from that feeling valuable, feeling like we built great relationships, feeling like this was the place we wanted to be, and as well as having a lot of fun. We just had a really good time.
So, Joy, this is Andrea, and before we move off of this slide that we're dying to move off of at this point, I did want to say that one of the reasons that I did go was simply the format's awesome. I love having these set appointments, these 30-minute appointments with face-to-face time with people, because
that's the perfect amount of time. And I love the that the educational seminars address everybody, and this format is just it's unlike really any other venue that I've been to. So it really is. I mean, I went last year for the first time, and this was my second year, and it's definitely one that I want to keep coming back because just the way it's personal. These 30-minute sessions are personal, and you get to actually ask the questions that you want to ask, and it's not a product show like you mentioned in the beginning. There's none of that there. This is one-on-one. What do you need from me? What do I need from you? That's why I go. I love that format.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it's interesting that you brought that up, and I know you were dying to get off this picture of yourself. So we're going to sit here for another moment. But someone has asked, what is the difference between this and other events that are like it? I have not been to some of the other events that are attempting this. I know that for CSI it's a big deal because it's entirely about relationship building. And so we build the education component to encourage everyone to be in the same room. We don't separate specifiers from product representatives at any point. We want everyone sitting together and learning things that help them. And then during the dates, which you referenced, I keep calling them dates. I think they call them knowledge exchanges. But we set it up in advance, and we let people know who they're going to be meeting with when they're there, and then we set up 30-minute appointments. And that is the focal point. We want people to sit down and actually talk to each other for an extended period of time. So it's very unlike any other CSI event or any other construction event I've been to. But if there's something you would point out that makes it unique, please let me know.
This is Lynn. I have gone to another similar event, and it was more rushed. The sessions were not that long. It was the representatives or the manufacturers, people who were changing seats all the time, so they couldn't have, it was hard for them to carry some of their stuff around to show you, and you kind of as an attendee sat in one place and let people come to you. But the times that it was, in the 15-minute range, and you just felt as if it were more rushed, and it was more jumbled, and you couldn't really take away a lot of information. So this is a much better organized event.
This is Andrea. I actually chose not to go to that one because this one is more personal and more intimate as far as the having that 30-minute slot of being able to ask specific questions about maybe a project that's going on, or something that your firm does on a regular basis and maybe needs a solution for because what you're doing isn't great and it could be better, that sort of thing. And so I chose not to go to the other, the flip-flop version of it, because it was a lot bigger, and like you said, it seemed to be a little bit more rushed and speed dating, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we try to introduce you to people that you wanted to talk to anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's a selection process, which I'm not involved in. But you get to pick out who you're going to sit and talk to. Okay, we're going to get off this slide and relieve Andrea of looking at this photo.
Ray!
Now, Tracey, you said, isn't this obvious? But I don't think it is, especially when we're talking about how we set up events like this, because there is, at many events, there is that sense of rush, and there's that sense that we're here to make sales and gather leads. We're not here to actually build a relationship, which is what CSI is looking for in this event. But do you want to talk about this for a minute, or?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I've always said, after practicing architecture for 10 years and specifying during part of that time, I would drive by the buildings that I worked on and helped design, and I would drive by and I wouldn't think about the brick I specified or the color paint that I picked out, but I thought about, I should give, Bob a call, who I worked with on that project. I haven't seen him in a while. I thought about the relationships that I built on that project, which I may or may not have taken onto other projects. So it just seemed like a very obvious thing to me, but I suppose looking around within the community, maybe it's not quite as obvious to everybody, and it is absolutely a reciprocal relationship that's beneficial to both people, because you never know where you're going to end up. Like I came from the world of architecture, and now I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm on what you would call the product rep side in the consulting role. So relationships are important in our industry, no matter where you are.
I can comment on that. That's the relationship between the specifier is looking for technical data. They're looking on how to get it right, how to get it in, how to get it figured out. The relationship is what makes the difference between an annoying sales call and a visit from a rep or a conversation with a rep that's really going to help you, where they become an advisor, where they become somebody that's helping you do your job rather than something that you have to endure. And there's a whole spectrum of people out there, both specifiers and reps. But I'm not saying anybody's perfect, but I think we're all looking for the best way to get our job done, to get it right. And I have yet to meet a specifier whose goal is not to get it right. But having those people that I can call and say, I've got a problem here with this. How do I figure this out? Help me figure this out. That's really important. That's the major part of my tool belt, is knowing who to call when I have a hardware problem, when I have a paint problem, when I have a coatings issue, when I have, a problem with soil contamination. There are people to call, and the more I get to know those people, and the more I get to know what they know that I don't, the more I feel that those are stronger tools in my tool belt.
Absolutely.
You're hitting on something, Kathryn, that I want to really highlight. We talk a lot about relationship building, and we tend to use that networking and relationship. They're words we just kind of throw around. But you're talking about going to this event and building a relationship around a particular kind of knowledge that you need to have, which is, this is the person I call to ask this question. He's not just a fun person in the bar, although he may be. But yes, we were in the bar late that night, weren't we? But this is the person I call with that kind of problem. This is the person I trust to have that depth of knowledge. And that's the kind of relationship specifiers are looking for, if I understand the situation correctly.
This is Lynn. My typical comment is I draw a horizontal line and say, this is what I know about everything that I'm supposed to deal with. And the line is about 3 or 4 feet long and about 1 inch wide. And that's my knowledge. And then I would look at someone like Tracey and say, and you have a knowledge, and I will do a vertical line that is about the same length, but a little bit wider, and say, and this is what your knowledge is, and I count on your knowledge to get me where I need to be and what I'm trying to do.
This is Andrea. That's spot on. I know a little bit about an awful lot of things, and I usually can figure out how to specify products depending on the knowledge that I have on it. But I need my product reps to tell me about their products and about their competitors' products and what needs, what theirs can do and what their products can and can't do, so that I can specify it correctly without writing proprietary specs. Because in my world, everything is publicly funded, and I have to find comparables, and my reps actually help me do that. They're my trusted, we're starting to use the word trusted advisor a lot. And I'm afraid that the meeting's going to get lost. But unfortunately, there are still salesmen out there. And so the relationship is really, really important, because I don't know anybody who has relationships with salesmen.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, that's.
So I do. I count on my product reps to be able to help me specify solutions.
Well, that gets to the heart of what CSI has been trying to talk about for years, and we do wrestle with it because people want to build relationships, but they don't know what kind of relationship they're trying to build. And that's what we're usually trying to get across to people, that there's a specific kind of relationship that you need to have between two people involved in a business situation, or you will not be able to get where you're trying to go, which is that the information has to move from one person to the other person and solve their problems. So and that's why we do these 30-minute dates at this event, so that there's enough time for that information to move.
Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is, because we're all together for the whole event, sometimes 30 minutes is enough. You just sort of scratch the surface and start to get into it. And you can sit next to that person at dinner. You can have coffee with that person. It lets you start to know how much can you help each other. And that's the great thing, is you can continue the conversations. It's not just, okay, the date's done, move on.
Mm-hmm. That's true, because everybody is there for the duration of the event. And so it's not like a product show where they're going to be busy for 3 days and you're not going to ever see them again. And so you'll just have to schedule something another time. We all go to lunch together. We all go to dinner together. We all have these receptions together, and you can actually talk to everybody there because everybody's required to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one gets to go off in the corner and hide at this one, do they? Not that you want to.
Escape.
Yeah.
Absolutely no escape. I didn't mean to make that sound like it was a bad thing. It's actually a good thing.
No, that's one of the fun things. There's there's a collegiality by the end of the first day. We're all moving as a group from one thing to the next.
Well, and with the weather the way it was this past one, we got to be really comrades in suffering with that weather.
Yeah, right in the middle of one of the Northeast's worst snowstorms this year, we were at this event. And so we were slightly better off because, of course, we did not have piles of snow around us, but it was still kind of chilly in Florida.
Yeah. It was nippy.
The whole country had snow that week. And so my husband is working somewhere, he travels, and so at home it was cold and snowy, and where he was it was cold and snowy. And so we just decided that it was probably best just to stay in Florida where it was cold, but it wasn't snowy, and we at least could look at some palm trees.
Now, I mentioned earlier that there's education, and the goal of the education at the MSR is to get everyone in the same room and have everyone learn something. No one is sitting there bored. How did you guys feel about the education this year?
Excellent.
Yeah, it was great.
I always find the education selections really interesting, and there's usually one group that I never thought about hearing them talk. In this case, it was the estimators, and I found it fascinating to hear from them and to sort of get a broader cross section, and then just some of the things, and I can't pronounce his name, the guy that talked from ASHRAE.
I believe we all just called him Joe. Yes.
Yeah, it was Joe Seabrick.
Yeah, he was
silent.
Okay. He was hilarious, and I think the takeaway we all had from his lecture is, don't be stupid.
Yeah, Joe is a phenomenal speaker, and I had not seen him before, but I had heard, his reputation precedes him. And honestly, he took this whole room of people, and I know that I have been to probably, 30 or so air barrier, building design, building envelope type of seminars in the last few years because it's such a big thing, and it's so important. And every time you go, you think you got it, and then you get back to the office and everybody's confused again. And so Joe seemed to just put it right out there. It was the first time anybody ever just said, "Look, this is the way it is. Vapor barrier, whatever. This is the way it is. Just don't be stupid." Yeah, it was. I really think. I mean, it was the first time that it just made everything so crystal clear. And I took it back to the office. I was like, you're right. This doesn't make sense to put one here. So.
This is Tracey. My favorite speaker there was Tim on the far right of the slide. For those of you who are the attendees on the call today, he's an author of a book called Network Like an Introvert, which I had, the pleasure of a few months prior to that because I'd attended the Institute like Leader Summit and board meeting for the Institute. But it's really pretty phenomenal, and I loved his lecture. I had met him the night before during one of the cocktail hours, not even realizing he was one of the speakers, and he's just so enthusiastic and passionate about the subject, and I thought that subject alone was extremely relevant for the course of the whole 3 days, and that we got to listen to that, right at the very beginning. But, people who know me don't realize I used to be an introvert, and when I practiced architecture, I was, for the most of that time, an introvert like most of the other architectural people I know, and was very quiet, and specifying and not outgoing. And it wasn't until I joined CSI almost 10 years ago that, they push you to the front of the room and you finally get brought out of your shell a little bit. So this event was kind of integral with that whole process and that experience I've had with CSI since the beginning.
And one of the things, and this came out in his lecture, that this event is fabulous for, is building those relationships where it's not a confrontational thing. We're trying to figure out ways to help each other, and you kind of get past that, because I think there's a lot of us that are introverts, whether we're closet introverts or not, and we may put on this public face because we have to do what we have to do for our jobs, and inside we're going, I just want to sit home with a cup of tea. So I just want to close the door and leave me alone for a while, people. It helps when everybody's friendly and you realize that everybody's really trying to help you. And if we can all get past that, I have to make my sales goal. I have to get so many leads. I have to get in so many specifications. And start to get down to what do we really need from each other and how can we help each other do our jobs. This environment that the MSR creates is really, really great for that. And Tim's lecture just reminded all of us of all of that right at the beginning.
The most useful piece of advice that I took from his lecture, because he was fantastic, was that he said that you should have a friend with you if you're an introvert and you're going to one of these big events where you're going to be moving around and trying to network, as we put it. You should have a friend who's in the same business you're in, but as we would put it, not in the same division. And the two of you help each other out in a room with networking. If you don't have anyone to talk to and you see your pals talking to someone, you walk over to him and he steps aside and lets you into the conversation. And that way the two of you, you're not really competitors, you're just in the same field, you have a lot of things in common, and you can help each other work the room completely by moving from conversation to conversation and letting one another in. And I thought that was really valuable.
Yeah.
Now, was there anything like that? Like, you guys have been talking about the don't be stupid with Joe. Does someone want to explain what he's talking about there? We should explain. Joe's lecture was on thermodynamics, and I honestly thought that we were going to have an ASHRAE fellow speaking on thermodynamics, and I was not entirely certain how people were going to stay awake for that. And then Joe started talking, and that he is one of the best speakers I've ever witnessed. Never mind his topic. He really knew what he was doing, and he kept coming back to what he meant by that don't be stupid. So do any of you remember it?
I do, actually. This is Andrea. So, yes, he talked about, he just went through basics. Buildings can dry to the outside, buildings can dry to the inside, buildings can dry to both sides. And, the second law of thermodynamics, which, none of us know by heart, but it's basically, heat flows warm to cold, moisture flows warm to cold, moisture flows more to less, air flows higher pressure to lower pressure, gravity acts down, all those basic things. And he just basically said, just don't, if you put a vapor barrier in an air-conditioned building because, buildings, it dries towards the cold. So if you put a vapor barrier in an air-conditioned building, that would be a stupid thing to do. Mm-hmm. And he just kept talking about just don't, think about this. Don't be stupid. Think about which way moisture goes and which way heat flows and
that was
how your
the
building
thing
is.
To think about which way the forces are flowing and not just try to remember a rule, we should always put the air barrier on the outside or we should always put the vapor barrier on the inside. But to really think about the climate and think about what are you trying to do here? is this a natatorium where you've got incredible humidity inside? What's on the inside of the building? What's on the outside of the building? What's going on with those forces?
Well, the basic don't be stupid thing is these are laws of physics. We can't fight them. It's like gravity always wins.
Exactly. And one of the things that he brought up specifically was, you can run all of the data program software things that you want to on your building wall, but the fact of the matter is, if it tells you your dew point is in the middle of your fluffy insulation, then that's not realistic, because that's never ever going to happen, because fluffy stuff doesn't condensate. Right. It has to have mass, and I was like, it's like, don't rely on all of these electronic models, because he says just think about what you're doing and stick with basic physics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kathryn really hit on it when she was talking about stop worrying about trying to remember a rule and think about what's actually happening. And that really was his fundamental message. Don't be stupid. Think about what's actually happening to the building here. It's fascinating. Before I move on, does anyone remember anything specific that they took home from the estimators?
Work with them.
Talk to them and find out what are they using to estimate from.
Right.
They're not trying. Believe it or not, they're not trying to screw everything up. They're trying. They're trying to get it right just as much as we are, and they're trying to figure out if you're looking for quantity over quality or vice versa. They're playing Where's Waldo on the drawings, trying to figure out, well, where is this thing?
Yep.
And what's the relevance of things? So they're trying to get to a result. They're trying to get it right, just like a specifier. So just like a product rep. So it was, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the name of their presentation was Players on the Same Team, Estimators and Specifiers.
Right.
And so that was a big point. That was like, look, you guys, work with us here, and we'll work with you, because there's no two people on the project that know more about it than the people that are writing the specifications and the guys that are trying to estimate it. So we find everything, and so that's probably a good relationship to start building is between estimators and specifiers, which I had never really thought of before, but I thought it might be an interesting concept.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I hadn't really thought about the role of the estimator, and I have since put this into play by trying to figure out, talk to the estimators when we're doing it. Well, what did you estimate when you did the preliminary cost estimate on this project? What kind of roofing did you look at? What are you thinking of here? So, and it gives me an idea, because if I know, all right, we're working in this area, and okay, we have to change the roofing type. Now I know, okay, you were looking at a membrane roof. All right, so do I go with a single ply membrane? Can I look at something like a multi-ply bituminous modified? What am I looking at here? But I need to know if they've priced slate on the roof, or vice versa. If they've priced mod bit on the roof, and I'm looking at slate, we have a bust. There's a problem here.
Mm-hmm. And they need as much specific information as they can get. Good quality information is much more important than a whole lot of information, because that's the only way they're going to make a good estimate.
Yes, and Joy's being modest by not putting herself on this slide, but she...
Yeah, Joy's being smart by not putting herself on this slide.
She actually did a presentation as well.
Yes, I talked about social media.
And social media, and what platform to use for what you're trying to say and who you're trying to speak to, and it was very, very interesting, I think for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but these three here, they were rock star speakers. They were excellent. I was very impressed.
Well, you're not exactly a doo-wop either, so.
They were out of my league. I was very impressed. Now, the other thing that happened between the education sessions is we had those 30-minute breaks where we went and we sat down, we had signed up to see certain people and made sure we were talking to someone we wanted to talk to, and then we sat down, we talked for 30 minutes. What were these conversations like?
Well, one of the things that... Oh, go ahead, Andrea. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, that's all right, Kathryn. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I did, because I had known ahead of time who I was going to have a chance to sit down and talk to, is I tried to look through my stuff, come up with specific questions. Here's an issue that I've been having. Here's a problem I've been having. And this is also my opportunity to talk to these guys, because mostly these are higher level reps. These are people that know where their company is going. I want to know, where are you going with this product? Here's something we're interested in developing. Have you guys thought about something like this? And that, to me, finding out where they're going in the future, one of the things that I always want to find out is who's making resins that are not petroleum-based. And that's not a question you can ask most people off the top of their head, because they kind of look at you funny and like, what? But the folks that come to this event are knowledgeable enough that I can ask them that question, and they start to think about it, and they go, well, we've been doing this, we're going here, and let me talk to my R&D folks, and it encourages deeper conversations, and I can get leads on, sometimes I can get to the R&D folks with companies and find out, well, where are you going? If you're developing this, can you push it a little farther? Can you turn it slightly this way? What are you doing that will help me in the future? Because I have some really weird needs.
Yes, we all have really weird needs, don't we?
Yes, someone should step in and say something now. Yes.
I meant that in a professional sense. I meant that in... Oh, boy. Okay, I'm just going to stop talking now.
So to answer your question on what were these like, and for me, I mean, there's, 13, 14 of them, and each one was uniquely different, because it depends on who I'm talking to and how I'm, how I'm using that product, or whether I know an awful lot about it or whether I don't know anything about it and I need more information from a technical standpoint, or whether I am, hey, we use your product all the time and I love it, but does anybody else do what you do, and what are the differences? And because I just, every single one of these was uniquely different. Yes, it's looking towards the future from a whole firm standpoint and where are you going, but it's also how this relates to my specific projects, or how this relates to a project I'm working on right now, or how this relates to our project type in general. Where could I use this? Where, and the flip side of that is that it's a two-way street too. I come prepared, knowing that I'm going to get asked, hey, so what do you got going on there where you think this might fit? And I can actually speak intelligently about, some of the projects that I have going on, or how we typically use their product. And, it seems to have worked, and can you think of any way better? And this is where I learn. This is, they truly are knowledge exchanges, two-way streets.
What did you think, Tracey?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought the actual method that was used to pair people up before the event, I had never participated in one of these before, but, we researched all the specifiers that were signed up and made some selections about the ones that we didn't already have relationships with, because certainly there were some people from companies there that we already worked with. I thought it was really nice how, CSI handled that really well and tried to match up with who we requested to meet with quite well. And some of the, our panelists today mentioned earlier the 30-minute session. I thought that was an excellent time frame. It was just enough time, to talk about the nitty-gritty and products, and also have a little bit, just a couple moments of small talk to connect with the person had I not met them at a prior, educational session or cocktail hour or something. I thought the timing of it was pretty great, and that the people that showed up were definitely, every person that me and my colleague met with were definitely, people that were very knowledgeable about their own company and what that company was up to and what projects they were working on.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback like that. That's people want that slow and easy conversation for 30 minutes. And then, as Kathryn said earlier, you can always go to dinner with people because we're all going to eat in the same room. And you can continue to talking to folks about things you need to discuss.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to add that the breaks between the face-to-face and the education I thought they were really great, too. There was a lot of to be honest, there was excellent food and drinks in between every single break, and everybody wanted to go out there and sample of everything that they had, so there was a nice opportunity to talk during every one of the breaks throughout the several days that we were there together, too.
Yeah, and if you didn't get a date with somebody, you just found them during one of the breaks and said, hey, let's sit down and talk for 5-10 minutes. So it gave you a chance to expand the number of slots you had, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I can't think of anything else to add.
Well, that's okay, because we've moved on to the slide that has your picture on it, Lynn. Lynn, who escaped the bar photo. Now, there are events there are events that reps go to constantly. Not all, very few. I'm thinking ours is truly unique at this point, but very few are of this level. But there are events constantly. How do you prepare to go to an event, a networking event, where there's going to be this kind of interaction?
I'd like to jump right away on this because I didn't even know there was going to be this absolutely phenomenal handbook that we were going to be given when we arrived. So I did a lot of research in advance for who was going to be there, both for the specifier side and for the reps, for all the attendees. And I just kind of looked up at people on LinkedIn and tried to connect with one, some people I was already connected to, and I tried to make sure that I brought with me like a little cheat sheet kind of who is who from each firm and how many offices did that firm have. I kind of had that in advance, but then we were handed these absolutely phenomenal, very well put together marketing pieces. There were these big books that you're seeing here on the slide that actually had, all the research I had done in advance. And I was like, oh, I wish I had that book before I went because it would have been kind of handy. I know some of the attendees kind of changed at the last minute, so some of those pages would have changed maybe in the last minute there. But I thought that those books were really great references and good pieces to take home and keep. I thought that preparing for the event was just as important, if not more important, than actually the attendance. That you really, really, for anybody who's on the call, I know there's actually 4 people on the call that attended the event, but so for a few people that have not attended that are more on the product rep side, I felt it was absolutely vital that I research those companies in advance because I'm only up here in New England in the Boston area, and I was expecting to meet people from outside of New England from across the whole country. So,
Tracey, when I'm talking to product reps, I try to tell them that the more money and time they are investing in participating in something, the more time they ought to invest in research in advance, because it is your money and your time or your resources. How do you feel about that? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't be a corporate sponsor for CSI, I think, unless we knew that, we were going to get an ROI, a return on investment for the time that we spend. And you certainly have to be prepared in order to make that investment.
Yeah. That's why we issue this book in advance to the attendees so that they can start to get to know each other and be ready for the conversations they're going to have. We actually have someone commenting on Twitter, I think it's Cliff Marvin. The advanced bios of reps in attendance afforded the opportunity to prepare for the meeting and to focus your questions, which is very helpful.
We did receive bios in advance through the email, but the booklet had the photos of the people, and I found that's why I went on LinkedIn to look for the photos to see what these people actually look like.
But I like to know what manufacturers, what reps are going to be there, because then that says then I bring a little mental list of questions. Oh, I don't have a meeting with this person, but I want to find them and ask them about X. So that, to me, knowing in advance who's going to be there, it just helps. You prepare, you come with your questions, and I'm talking from the specifier side. I have, given enough time, I can come up with questions for anybody. and some of them are really ugly and hard and chewy questions. So those are the fun ones. I like to stump people. No, if I'm asking a question, it's not just because I'm trying to stump you. It's because I'm trying to figure out how to make this work. So
Non-petroleum-based resins, yes.
Non-petroleum-based resins. Well, hey.
Andrea, Lynn, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, in light of this last one, it's one of the things you don't do is pack for what you think the weather's going to be.
Layers, bring layers, people. Bring a cardigan, bring a jacket, something you can slip on because those conference rooms are cold and drafty. They may be beautiful, but they're cold and drafty.
But
on that
Kathryn hit it on the head too, because I do the exact same thing. I go through and I see, I have these knowledge exchanges with these companies, and how do I make these personal? Relate them to me, which, by the way, we really respect it when you know what it is our firm does.
Yeah.
It's really important. And even if you think you know and we get there and you're like, well, that's not really it, we appreciate that face-to-face conversation as a specifier to be able to say, to listen to us when we tell you it's not exactly what we do. I'm more interested in this right now. And but yes, I prepare for that by going through my appointments, my appointment list, and figuring out how I can make each one of those knowledge exchanges relate to exactly what I'm doing. And a lot of times it's really easy, and sometimes it's maybe I just I don't really know them very well, and so I just want to ask some higher level questions. But Kathryn hit it on the head too. When you get the list, you know who all else is going to be there as well, and so when you do have a very specific question, you're going to be with those high level people. Then so you can go find them, at lunch and sit with them, or during a break or whatever, and ask specific questions that are relevant to what you need to know.
And there is a time that you can research too much. Sometimes you can get so focused on specifics you don't leave room for the general conversation of getting to know you. Here's what things we could go in the future, and give yourself a little wiggle room in the conversation. So just, I think Andrea kind of knows where I'm trying to go with this.
Yes. Sometimes, and a lot of times people will get focused on, hey, you did this project, tell me about that. Tell me about this project. Tell me, well, those are past things, and I'm really there to, have that knowledge exchange with you based on what I'm doing in the future and what you're doing in the future, and not necessarily on, hey, you guys did this and you guys did that. So yeah, it's nice when, these levels of exchanges. How do you prepare? You just you get a couple of ideas in your head about the types of things that you're going to talk about with each person, and then you go with the flow once you get together, because sometimes some of the things that I was going to ask a particular product rep ended up changing when within the first 30 seconds after I sat down. So, it is very dynamic.
Yeah, and you have to be flexible and be prepared to be flexible, because I've sat down with reps who I thought did one aspect of what their company does and found out, they did something entirely different. So I suddenly changed all the questions I was asking. But you have to be able to think on the fly.
And sometimes it's
important. Oh, sorry, Beth.
Go ahead, Tracey.
This is Tracey. I was just going to say that I think it's important that the companies that know, the ones that we're calling the reps companies, that they would send people that are the most friendly and personable people that would be good in conversations on the fly and everything that we've all said here, kind of, But for me, too, I've been a member of CSI for 10 years since I got out of college, and I think the people I've connected with through CSI have helped me in a wide range of ways, not just now the role I have now where I'm obviously pursuing specifiers to work with on projects. I just thought it was really neat that everybody that was there, everybody seemed very much on the same page. Everybody was very friendly and personable in every single event that we went to. So I think any other companies that are on this call today that are listening for the future and trying to decide whether your company is going to get involved in the retreat next year, just make sure you're sending the people from your company that are really the best and most knowledgeable representatives of your company, and also the ones that are the most personable and have the best personality, too, that can connect with everybody.
Good point. That's a good point. That's one of the reasons I really like this event, is because when everybody that you speak to is actually on the same level. They understand you're a specifier and that you're a technical geek by nature, and so you're not about another contact for them for their sales meeting. You are about finding more technical things, and so I appreciate that the higher level of people that attend this, because like I said, it just helps us do all of our jobs better, and if it's not just somebody they're trying to make another contact for sales.
Yeah, and I think it should, like I mentioned it earlier kind of lightly, but I think it should be people that are, maybe more active in CSI too, because, long before I was doing the role that I have now, I was a cheerleader for CSI as a college student and as an architectural person, and then now on the product rep side. I just think it should be somebody who's really passionate about our organization as a whole, and those are the ones who are going to benefit across the board, not just from a professional level, but also from a personal leadership standpoint, that they're going to benefit from attending an event like this.
Well, we are very picky about who comes to this event, and we are looking for people who really understand what CSI is trying to accomplish, which is relationship building. And we don't want to bring in people who are not there to build relationships, or who are not there, who don't understand the significance of communication in construction between the teams, who are just trying to defend their silos and get a little more money into it. That's not what we're going for. Well, ladies, we are coming up on the hour, and so I just have to ask quickly, are you still in touch with the people you met this year?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I walked into a meeting in Florida to meet a team for a project that I didn't know anybody, and immediately discovered that the specifier that they were working with was somebody who I had met the previous year at the Master Specifiers Retreat and had a really good comfort level with, and that made the whole project, from my point of view, is going so much easier, because I know he's at a certain level, and I have a level of trust with him to understand where I'm trying to go as an owner.
There's also a certain level of irony that happens at these things when you go back to your office in your hometown, and suddenly something that you spoke about to somebody at this retreat is now forefront in a project, and you're going, oh yeah, I just talked to this guy last week about this from the other side of the country, and I'll just call him up, and it's amazing how that just sort of happens. Because it happened to me last year, it happened to me again this year, and I still have contacts with the people I met last year, and it truly is, just a really unique event. All the conferences that I've been to, I have not quite had this type of experience.
Nope. And the nice...
Go
ahead. Actually, I was probably... Go ahead, Tracey.
Are you sure? No, I was just going to say that, from my standpoint, I have kept in touch with quite a few of the people that I've met there, including you ladies, yay! And through this call too. But also, I've also kept in touch with the people that represent each of our territories and regions across the country, because some of the people I met at the event, out of the 100 people there, some I may never meet again, but at least I know they're taken care of, and we've connected the dots with the people that do live local to them, whether it's Chicago, Dallas, or San Francisco. I've connected those dots, and the people from our company are in touch with the people that are local to that area. So it's very valuable.
that's what I was going to say. Is I meet people like Tracey, and Tracey's in the Northeast. But if I had a problem, I'd say, Tracey, who's that guy? Who's your rep out here on the West Coast? Who's your rep in Southern California? I've got an issue at Disneyland, and she will hook me up. And I know that because of my relationship with her, she'll hook me up with the right person. And that just building. Once I've built a relationship with her, I have the advantage of being able to use her knowledge of her company so that I can leverage that better and get better service from that company.
Thanks, Kathryn.
And on that note, ladies, I wanted to let everyone know that we have booked the space for the 2015 MSR, and this time we are going to Scottsdale, or I guess everyone else is going to Scottsdale. But if you want to know more about the upcoming event, go to CSInet.org/MSR. I believe we are definitely taking applications now, and you do have to apply, whether you're a specifier or a rep, to attend this event and participate in it. And I wanted to let you know that next month's free webinar for our product representative community will be Caitlin Solomon and I talking about one small aspect of all the stuff we know about social media. We are going to talk about social media at product shows. She and I have dealt with the social media at Construct, CSI's big event of the year. For the past 3 years, I think we've been working on it together, and we've got bigger and better numbers every year, and we also have built what we want, which is that community. So we'll talk to you about how you can participate and how you can make that work for you at any product show you're attending. Now, we also wanted to let you know that we are so close to the Product Representative Academy. It's next week, but I think they have just a couple of seats left open. If you're interested in attending that, it'll be in Indianapolis. And then the new Trusted Advisors Workshop, where we will spend the entire day with a group of product representatives talking about relationship building and becoming a trusted advisor. That just opened up for registration, so you can register for that now. I look forward to seeing you all there. Ladies, thank you so much for giving me your time today and for helping me explain the MSR. I take so many questions about it, and I really appreciated the conversation today.
Thanks, Joy.
Thanks, Joy, for letting us mouth off.
Yeah. The group you hung out with in the bar, that's the people to do a webinar with, definitely.
You have the blackmail photos, so she didn't show you the one. She didn't show you the ones that she sent around and said, "I need you to do this webinar."
I would never do that to you. Yeah. Well, thank you, folks. I'm going to go ahead and close this down, but thank you all for sitting in with us today, and please let us know at CSI if you have any questions about anything we said today. I can be reached at jdavis@csinet.org. or pretty much any other email address you find on CSINet, webmaster, marketing, whatever, it will come to me. Thank you so much for your time, ladies.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.